Right, it started. Johan, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Henry. Hearty good evening. Where are we now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Tonight we're carrying on down the road to fully fledged radio equipment. And the purpose of tonight's lecture is to discuss transmitters with you. What is inside a transmitter and what makes a transmitter either good or bad. So yeah, it shouldn't be a too long lecture, but we've got a lot of stuff to go through. If I could get my thing to flip. Okay, transmitters. Remember we said modulation last week when we discussed it. We are transferring information, either our voice, audio, or data onto the carrier signal. Now, the transmitter is the next building block in this chain, which then takes this modulated signal, which we created on Tuesday night, and it turns that modulated signal into a powerful signal that can go down the cable all the way to our antenna, and it can be radiated into the outside world. So the transmitter completes the chain for you from audio all the way to my antenna. Remember when we did modulation, we spoke about CW, continuous wave, and the characteristic of continuous wave was that we are switching the carrier frequency on and off to coincide with, for example, the symbols we use in Morse code, the DIRs and the DARs, or DITs and dots, as some people call it. So if we look at this, I've made my cursor bigger tonight. We've got our oscillator, and this will be running all the time. Okay, because remember, if you go back to oscillators, when we apply the power to an oscillator, it needs to settle. It needs to reach its stable operating frequency. So for that reason, my oscillator in my radio will always be running. It will always be generating an RF signal, or an RF signal at the frequency that it was designed to oscillate. If it was a synthesizer, our phase lock loop, which we also discussed previously, the phase lock loop will always be operational. It doesn't switch off unless I turn the power off to the radio. But as long as the radio is powered, my oscillator, my phase lock loop is operational. It's running so that it's stable. I normally always have a buffer. Remember when we did oscillators, we said if I load the oscillator's output, I'm going to also change the frequency of my oscillator. So for that reason, my transmitter will always have a buffer to isolate any changes happening on this side so that they do not have any mutual effects on my frequency of my oscillator. Okay, so in the case of continuous wave or CW, I've got a Morse key as an example, and this Morse key then turns on the oscillator signal so that it passes through to the power amplifier. Let me just turn the repeater off before it makes a noise. So I switch on and off the oscillator signal that needs to go to the power amp. And that coincides then with my, for example, Morse code symbols. I have a power amplifier, and the power amplifier then puts out a signal that goes to my antenna. Okay. This is not a very good power amplifier because this signal looks really crappy. And when we start going through some other examples, you'll see I always have filters, especially a low-pass filter on the output of my power amplifier. And the purpose of the filter is to beautify my signal, but also to get rid of any harmonics that may be present in the output of my power amplifier. So if they ask you what's the purpose of the filter in a transmitter, it is to get rid of harmonics, but it's also there to beautify. I call it beautify. The technical term is most probably to reconstruct my output signal going to the antenna so that it is representative of the input signal. When we discuss the classes of amplifier, you will see that what comes out of power amp is sometimes far from what you put in. But because I use filters, it beautifies or it reconstructs the output signal going to the antenna. So continuous wave, to recap, oscillator is always running. I've got a switch that turns the carrier frequency on and off, goes to the power amplifier through a filter to the antenna. Easy one. Remember we did FSK, frequency shift keying, on Tuesday, where we said my output is alternating between two frequencies. In other words, frequency 1 or frequency 2. So if my data that is coming into the radio is 0, I, for example, would output oscillator 1 all the way to my power amplifier. If my signal coming in from the computer is a level 1 or a true signal, it will turn the other oscillator on so that the output of the other oscillator on, so that goes to the power amp. What is missing in this drawing of myself or of a transmitter is there's no power amp, power supply antenna shown on this drawing. So this FSK modulated wave goes to a power amp, it goes to a filter, it goes to an antenna. But the principle is I've got two oscillators, and depending on the logic level of my input signal, I would select oscillator 1 or oscillator 2. That's FSK. Okay, don't confuse AFSK with FSK. FSK is where I physically move the transmit frequency between two fixed frequencies. Amplitude modulation. I've got an oscillator. Everything, remember we said when we did oscillators, I said the heart of all radios is the oscillator. So I have an oscillator. I have an audio amplifier, because my microphone's output signal is obviously very, very small. I amplify it, I may filter it, I can do all sorts of processing on the audio signal, but it goes to a modulator, and then the modulator would change it so that the amplitude of the carrier frequency is modulated in line with the changes of my audio frequency. If you go back to the drawings of Tuesday, it showed you nicely how I superimposed the audio frequency on top of the carrier. Same scenario, it goes to a buffer amplifier, it goes to a power amplifier, and it goes through a filter to my antenna. Okay, amplitude modulation. Now we get to single sideband. Remember we discussed it, let me jump to this one. Remember we discussed it on Tuesday, where we said amplitude modulation is incredibly inefficient because 2/3 of my RF energy lies in the carrier, and then the two sidebands are a mirror of each other. So I'm actually duplicating the information in both sidebands. That's why AM modulation was not a very good method. It's nice and cheap and easy to produce, and cheap and easy to demodulate, but I lose a lot of my efficiency of my energy in places where I don't need it to go. Okay, so let's go back here. So how do we create an SSB signal? The first thing I do, I've got an oscillator, I've got a buffer, and then I've got a balanced modulator. Okay. So what happens with a balanced modulator? I get a signal which has got both sidebands and it's got carrier in. Okay. I put it through a crystal filter. if you think back on our lecture of crystal filters, and now you see why everything starts falling into place. All those building blocks we've discussed in the last month is now coming to play. We said the unique part of a crystal filter is it is incredibly sharp. Okay, so it's a very narrow, very sharp filter. So what I do with my crystal filter is I remove the carrier and the one sideband, and then I end up with only one sideband. I mix it. Why do I mix it? I want it to go to a higher frequency. I put it through a bandpass filter. Why? Because a mixer produces the sum of these two signals as well as the difference between these two signals. So I need to get rid of the difference between the two signals. I only want the sum of them. Okay. I put it through a bandpass filter, which gets rid of all the components I don't need, and it goes to my power amplifier. There's a filter which is missing here, and my antenna. Okay, so when I've modulated, I've got a double sideband signal. So let's go back to this one. So after that first double balanced modulator, I've got all three of these components available. All three are there. But I don't want these two. I want to get rid of them. That's why I use a crystal filter, so that I only end up with the one that I'm interested in. But now this frequency is perhaps on the low side. Let's say I want to work at 30 megahertz and this signal is 1 megahertz. I then use a mixer to mix it up to 30 megahertz. Easy as falling off a chair. Okay. I think, no, I'm not sure if this is the drawing out your manual. There is one in the manual as well, but I think this is another one. But it's the same concept. All radios tend to use a crystal filter of some sort to generate the single sideband signal. FM, a straightforward and easy one. Okay, I've got an audio signal, I've got an amplifier, and I can do all sorts of things with my amplifier. I have a filter that passes only the frequency that I'm interested in. Again, I've got an oscillator, but this time round I've got an FM modulator. So what does FM do? I change the frequency to coincide with the changes of my audio signal. Okay. So the higher the amplitude of the audio signal goes, the higher the frequency goes. And the lower the amplitude of the audio frequency goes, the lower the frequency of the FM modulator goes. It goes through a frequency multiplier, which could be just a normal mixer, because again, I may end up with 1 megahertz here and I want 100 megahertz on this side. So I've got to mix it up, or I can multiply it up. Just remember, when I mix it up, yeah, let's leave it at that. Okay, so I can multiply it up to 100 megahertz and through a power amplifier, through a filter, to my antenna. So those are the types of transmitters we use in amateur radio. My CW transmitter, straightforward and easy. Titanic, which sank 100 years ago, also had a CW transmitter on. FSK, I change between two frequencies. Amplitude modulation, I modulate. So I change the carrier to coincide with the audio. I amplify and I pass it. Single sideband, I've got to get rid of the signals I do not want. The carrier and the lower sideband, I've got to get rid of it, and I use filters for it. And FM, I change the frequency of the carrier to coincide with the audio frequency of my transmitter. Those are the types of transmitters. Okay, one of the things we didn't do yet, you did transistor amplifiers with, I think it was Louis. Transmitters traditionally uses different classes of amplification. You must remember now, a little transistor has got very low currents going through it, and it's got very low power being dissipated by them. If we start working with power amplifiers, okay, I have a lot of heat and I have a lot of wastage. Okay, so if we look at, for example, a class A power amplifier, let's start with that one. Efficiency, poor, 25 to 50%. Okay, so let's say it is 50% just for mathematical purposes. It's 50%. If my radio needs to transmit 100 watts of RF power to the antenna, it means I actually have to supply the power amplifier with 200 watts of energy, because 50% of that 200 watt of energy is wasted. It's gone. It's normally in the form of heat. Okay, so it loses in the other ways as well, but traditionally that energy is lost in heat. And if you think of it logically, if you have a heater that's 100 watts, that consumes 100 watts of energy, that heater is going to get pretty hot. Okay, so that's why one of the reasons why AM is not a very good amplitude modulation method or a transmission method for amateur radio, because I lose all this energy. I lose it without it going to my antenna. It's pretty bad. Okay. The one good thing about a Class A amplifier is that it has got very low distortion. And this comes back to a question I think Peter had a week or two ago. I see Peter is not here tonight. On why do they transmit in AM on broadcast stations below 30 megahertz? It's one of these reasons. There is very little distortion, so the quality of my transmission is superior to a lot of these classes. Okay. One of the reasons for that being, the power amplifier is switched on for 360 degrees. Where does that come from? Go back to your theory on sine waves. One cycle of a sine wave is 360 degrees. So in other words, in an AM Class A amplifier, it is continuously switched on the transistors. So they are continuously conducting, they're continuously wasting 50% of their energy, etc. But they offer superior audio quality, and that's why the broadcast stations use it instead of SSB. Okay, so that's one type of amplifier we use to go to the antenna, is a Class A amplifier. The easiest to remember it, look at these graphs at the bottom. That tells you the whole story. Okay, so a Class A conducts for 360 degrees of the cycle. A Class B amplifier, okay, that transmits only for 180 degrees of my cycle. The other 180 degrees, it is switched off. Okay, so dissipation is much lower. It's already half, because I'm now not wasting energy for 360 degrees. I'm only wasting energy for 180 degrees. Okay, but now you can picture it nicely in your head. Already my output signal out of the power amp is going to look beautiful, 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 beautiful. Then it's going to flatline, shit, 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 shit. Then it starts looking good again. Okay, because this half is missing. It's not there. Okay, so this is why we use filters and transformers on the output of our power amplifiers, because that then try and reconstruct. Remember we said those filters on the power amp, I said they beautify the signal. So in other words, if you want to picture it, it tries to recreate the signal. It doesn't get it right perfectly. It's impossible. but it goes a long way to make the signal look beautiful again. Okay, so that's a Class B amplifier. Class C, okay, it conducts, the power amplifier transistors conducts for less than 180 degrees. It's very efficient. Distortion is incredibly high. So you can imagine, I cannot put an AM signal or a SSB signal through a Class C amplifier because it's you can't beautify it, okay? If it's born ugly, it stays ugly. You can do as much cosmetic surgery as you want to. You cannot reconstruct the original signal with the type of electronics that comes with a Class C amplifier. So this is typically used on FM transmitters because what is important on an FM transmitter? The frequency change carries the information that I need to demodulate. The amplitude of the signal carries no information. It's the frequency change of an FM signal that carries the information. So this can be very easily used on a FM transmitter. So again, if you want to picture it, it only turns on for that little bit of time. Okay, and the rest of the time I've got to use electronics to try and beautify it again or to reconstruct it again. Okay, let me stop there for a moment. Class A, B, and C, because that's the crux of everything else coming. Is there any questions or any unclarity on A, B, and C? And it gives me a chance to have some coffee. Okay, now we start and we combine A and B. Remember, A was conducting 360 degrees and B was only conducting 480 degrees. Okay, so AB gives me something looking like this. So my distortion is less than what it would be as a Class B amplifier. So I'm gaining a little bit of the distortion benefit that I had with the Class A, but I'm gaining some of the power efficiency benefit that I had with the Class B. So it is sort of the best of both worlds put together in a Class AB amplifier, where they combine the principles of B and A to try and overcome the problems that we have in A and B, which is efficiency and typically distortion. Okay, that's AB. Now we get to the next one, and I've put this one up because I think it's most probably the best description I can give you for a Class E amplifier, which is also in your manual. Class E is one of the most modern amplifiers that you get now. I don't know who's old and who's young in this group, but if you go back to the days of disco, nightclubs, they had a strobe light, okay? And the strobe light was flashing at a regular interval. Argument's sake, let's say every second I had a strobe light flashing, okay? I could build with my brain a picture of the people moving on the dance floor. Yes, it was a bit jagged, but in my brain, I reconstructed the movement of people. And I could actually predict where the guy's arm was going to go. And this is the best example I can give you of a Class E amplifier. They turn the power transistors on like a strobe flash every, argument's sake, example, every second. Okay. So it's very efficient, but it's poor for distortion. But I can beautify and reconstruct afterwards again to try and recover as much of the information as I want. But perhaps the best example I can give you is if you hear class E, think of the days in the nightclubs where you had a strobe light. And that's what the power amplifier is doing in a class E amplifier. It pulses at very regular intervals, and it generates all these voltages, all these little lines you see, which then represent my signal. And if afterwards I put it through filters, I can sort of reconstruct what I put into it. Okay. I hope it's as clear as mud. Okay, let's recap the classes, which is in your manual. Different classes of power amps, A, B, C, D, and E. D is not in your manual, so be lucky it's not, but E is in your manual. Okay. Classes differ in their angle of conduction. Remember we said that class A conducts for 360 degrees, class B conducts for 180 degrees, class C could conduct, for example, 80 degrees or 90 degrees, whatever it gets designed to do. And class E could be snapshots of 15 degrees or snapshots of 10 degrees for that matter. Okay, so it differs in their angle of conduction. It differs in efficiency. So obviously the more I turn my power amplifier transistors on, the hotter they're going to get. So a class A is very inefficient. A class E is very efficient. Okay. Then there's the other important one, linearity and amount of distortion. I cannot put an amplitude modulated signal through class C or class E because it gets screwed up badly. Okay. And garbage in, garbage out. You cannot beautify everything in life. So the things which is important, angle of conduction or the time the transistors are turned on, how efficient is the class of amplifier, how linear is the amplifier, the linearity of it, and the amount of distortion introduced to the output. Okay. What we also do to improve things a bit, we have things in our transmitters which they call clipping. And what the clipping does, it improves the efficiency. Okay, it's not good for distortion, but it's good for efficiency because I now have less current less current going through my transistors. So things they do in amplifiers, they have hard clipping or soft clipping. Hard clipping you could typically use on an FM signal because FM, the amplitude is not important. What is important is the change in frequency. Okay. Soft clipping is something you would typically see on amplitude modulated signals because it's less harsh and it doesn't damage the signal's integrity that much. So if you see that little bit on clipping in your manual, that's all that it is about. It's to improve efficiency of my amplifier. The other thing it also does is, which I'm thinking of now, is it improves my power supply's ability to regulate. Because remember, power amplifiers, you would ideally want them to have a constant voltage or a constant supply, voltage and current that goes to them. Because if the voltage starts drooping, my output power is going to droop. So clipping also helps to keep the voltage going to the power amplifier from drooping or from dropping when there's large signals. The other very important thing which CB operators don't understand is something which they call automatic level control. Okay. Especially on amplitude modulated signals. If I overdrive the carrier, I get distortion because I overmodulate. And to prevent that from happening, I have something which is called ALC. So if people are talking soft, they would typically, let's say, be on this part of the ALC curve. Okay, so there's no correction needed. But as the guy starts shouting, I need to make sure that I do not go over the orange line. And that's exactly what the automatic level control does. It then dampens or reduces the gain of my buffer stage going to the power amp so that I don't exceed the limits of my power amp and I don't create distortion where it doesn't belong. Okay, so there is a little bit on automatic level control in your manual. Then we look at filters of power amps. This is a little circuit of a 100-watt power amplifier. So this thing will put out 100 watts to my antenna, which is quite normal for the radios that we use. Okay. Why do I have 2 transistors? Okay. It improves the efficiency. So one transistor working at 100 watts won't be as efficient as the 2 transistors working at 50 watts each. So they equally contribute to the 100 watts going to the antenna, and I have less dissipation and I have a better efficiency. So what do I have here? This horrible looking stuff you see here. It is basically a piece of feed line, which is a power splitter. So in other words, the power coming from my buffer is equally divided by these 2 transformers on either side, so that 5 watts or 7 watts goes that side and 5 or 7 watts goes this side. Okay, so that's all this power splitter does. It's feed line, so it's transformer. It's 2 transformers. If you look at it, there's a single wire going through and there's an outside wire. This is just to make sure that the impedance, which what the splitter sees, is 50 ohms. What typically happens with power splitters, if they don't see the design impedance, they don't split properly. So I split the power into 2. I have this wonderful filter here. What does this filter do? It makes sure that only my signal that I'm interested in is fed to the power amp. Because if I now start amplifying garbage as well, the efficiency of my power amp goes down. So with this filter stage I've got here, I'm actually trying to make sure that it's only the signal that I'm interested in that goes to the power amplifier transistor for amplification. And the same on this side. Okay. These inductors, which you see here, is just to decouple the power supply. Why do I need to decouple power supplies? Oh, somebody's dropping off. Okay. If I don't decouple power supplies, I feed all the noise back to the power supply, which is fed to another radio or somewhere else in the house for interference. When we do EMI, EMC later in September, it will make a lot more sense for you. Okay, then the output of my power transistor again goes through a filter. So this you see here is the beautification. This is the beauty parlor where you get the mud wrap and the, whatever the women do in the beauty parlor. Okay, so this whole filter's purpose in life is to make sure that any signals which is outside my operating frequency is discarded, and it tries to beautify the signal coming out of this transistor so that it looks like a sine wave again. Okay, and the same on this side. I've got this whole filter stage here, which purpose is beautifying the signal and getting rid of anything that I do not want. Then I combine the 250-watt signals together and I get my 100 watts going to my antenna. So this is a very typical circuit for a power amplifier that we find in our radios all over. They like using. I had a 1 kilowatt power amplifier which I used on HF. That one had 8 transistors in, and each transistor contributed 200 watts of RF power. Okay, so they had 8 of these in parallel being fed from a single input source. So it's quite normal to split the power, amplify it separately, and combine it again. Okay, all modern transmitters have common blocks. ALC, which we discussed, automatic level control. And please, we'll have a look at a drawing now. Low pass output filter or beautification filter. Antenna protection. So what they do is, it's not visible on this one, but I normally have an inductor which is in series with my output to the antenna. And if I get too much power reflected back from the antenna, it normally triggers a circuit that turns my power amplifier's supply off. So this 28 volts disappears. Boom, it's gone, to protect the amplifier from reverse energy coming back. Okay, so there's normally antenna protection. I've got my power amplifier, and I've got a phase lock loop signal generator. Okay, there's this little video clip for you. You'll see this flips between RX and TX. Now it's receiving, there it's in transmit. So this is typically what I want to do when I transmit. I want a single line on my spectrum. My ALC should not go outside the red line. If it goes outside the red line, I'm going to create distortion. I'm going to create harmonics. So go back there now. Okay, see there? The ALC is somewhere here. I would have loved to put it a little bit lower still, especially in digital communications, but it should not exceed that red line when I transmit audio or data. And these all lines you see as all the different stations, which is busy transmitting when this goes into receive. Okay, see this power amp? It draws about 12 amps of power when it is transmitting. Power output is roughly about 70 watts, 60 watts, 70 watts, there somewhere. And my current is about 12 amps. I don't have any reflected power. It's a beautiful signal. SWR is 1, which you will discuss with Pierre when he does antennas with you. So yeah, this is a fairly good transmission for you to see. Okay, Henry, that is transmitters. Is there any questions, people? See, everybody's thumbs up, so everybody must be happy. And there's no question. There's no questions to work through this time. There is questions for receivers on Tuesday, which we'll cover. 12 questions, I think, if I remember correctly.
Nee, maar dis reg, dankie Johan. Dan kry ons 'n bietjie vroeg klaar vandag, siene dat daar nie vrae is nie. Is daar enige vrae van enige iemand af andersins as van die klas?
Yes, jy dit weer gestel.
Wel, daar is nie vrae nie. So, right, ja, ek dink dis dan dit. Ek gaan die recording stop.
Okay.